Hi guys, welcome to Crackdown 3. In lieu of not having a stream this weekend, I was pretty busy hanging out with some family members. I wanted to drop a little bit of content and I figured, you know what, we haven't done a game review, not an entire game review, so let's try one of those. I figured, what the heck, right? So, to my surprise, Microsoft has released Crackdown 3. I've seen little to nothing on it before the release, and I definitely didn't see anything indicating that it had been released. Now, I just want to comment that I believe that is because Microsoft may be a little bit embarrassed. We've been riding the hype train since like 2013 E3 for this game. This game has, I would say, a pretty significant following. The first and second were really phenomenal, and they just didn't live up to the hype beast that they had created for this monster. To talk a little bit more about that, if anyone remembers the 2014 trailer we got, they were pretty much promising that everything in the environment would be destructible. That's something that we've kind of seen with games in the past, open world. Certainly Battlefield uses things like that, where you can pretty much destroy anything with your right amount of manpower, but that definitely wasn't implemented here. Basically what you're looking at on the screen now, this is all end-game content. I didn't want to throw you in the middle of a new game or anything like that, but we will get to end-game soon enough. Just so you know, since we haven't done a review before, I do want to state that my reviews are going to be in a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being, the highest, 1 being the lowest. I feel like that gives us a lot of room to work with, a lot of reason to say what was bad and what attributed to that score. So without further ado, let's jump into what made the game good and what made the game bad. First, I really want to speak about some of the things that made the game really good. As always, it's Crackdown, it's wild, it's bombacious, it's supposed to be a riot. You're supposed to feel like walking chaos when you play it. What I have to say is it felt good to play. Now, whether that be because we've been waiting for like 10 years, it feels like, I know that's not an accurate estimate, but 10 years or so to play another Crackdown. It feels like forever. And here we are, we're playing again. It feels good. The agent has thrusters. They feel really good. The agility is awesome. Classic, you level up your movement as you collect agility orbs throughout the city, play rooftop races, things like that. Very true to form in that sense of Crackdown. It feels like Crackdown all the way through when you play it. Do want to state that compared to the other games, there is little to no challenge with this game, I feel like. I played on the intermediate difficulty, and while that is intermediate, I feel like it should offer some challenge. I did not die but maybe once, and that was just finding out that yes, you can take an incredible fall damage enough to kill you. What I'm trying to say here is that you may find the fact that there is no skill cap to be able to pick up this game and play a pro, and I definitely would consider for a lot of people that is a pro. Not that the other ones were extremely difficult, but I do feel like this game lacked any challenge. That did take a little bit away from me. Combat is really fun, really fluid, but that is few and far between. That is, once you're finding combat, you either go through a slump where it feels like you're just being berated, beat over the head with combat, or there's none there. There's like no in between. This game, you have to understand, it works on kind of a territory system like we've seen with some of the newer releases, especially in these third-person open world environments, where you're in a territory and you're the good faction and you work to control as many points as possible. Basically, you take over a station, a landmark. They have different names in this game, like propaganda towers or a monorail station that's occupied by enemies. You take that over, you defeat the enemy occupancy, and then your guys move in, basically the agency. You can see we've got a couple down there as we speak right now. So that's all well and good. There aren't any times that you can really lose the occupation. Once it's yours, it's yours. There is no enemy contesting. So that's about where I stand with the pros. It was definitely not heinous by any stretch of the imagination, but it did a lot more wrong than it did right. I do feel like if this were a paid promotion, I would tell you. I also want to state that I already had Xbox Games Pass, and it was released to that. So technically, I'm paying at the most $10 a month for that. So this might as well be a $10 game. If I would have paid $65 for it, I would have been extremely upset. I played for 8 hours and I'm missing maybe 8 achievements. And that is because I'm not going to be going back through and getting those. The rooftop races are really easy. As somebody who I don't consider myself a die-hard race fan or anything like that, not just super into racing games, you've seen a little bit of the driving on here while we've been playing this in the background. The driving feels really unnecessary. Look at how the agent moves. You can get anywhere you want to. Just jumping, running, whatever, Driving is not a must, and it definitely is one of the weaker points of the game, especially when you get to the actual driving races. The driving races have 2 difficulty, in my opinion. That's not how it's listed on the game. They're either listed through skill level 1 through 5, 1 being easiest, 5 being the hardest. But what I find that we've ran into is that it's either a really freaking hard race or it's super easy. You're either going to get gold or gold seems impossible. There's nothing in between. That's all I can really say about the races. As far as in-game content, I think we should probably hit on that. You are at most going to be finding yourself playing through this game's solo campaign twice. And I say at most because, as you can see here, I'm running into very few enemies. Once you've cleared the enemies, they really don't come back. They're just kind of scattered around, hanging out. Might run into them, might shoot a couple. This is the UI. We'll talk about that in a little bit. What the map, what we're looking for, stuff like that. So you run into enemies, and basically what we're looking at is they're just kind of scattered. They have no direction. You kill them, it's all well and good. You can raise your alerts, kind of like the wanted system in Grand Theft Auto. You can become wanted, they'll target you, you'll become a targeted individual. But I think everybody's played out that mechanic and everything else, and it's really kind of lackluster here. You can only get up to 3, and 3 still does not feel like anything because, as I've mentioned earlier, you're extremely overpowered. And when you're overpowered, what does it matter if they're throwing all the enemies that they can muster at you? It's over. So the mission structure is there are like 9 main bad guys that you have to do by capturing each of their points respectively. There are technology based, there are manufacturing based, and then there are basically defense based or offense based, depending on which perspective you're looking at it from. So like you capture these monorail stations and you will start from lowest. After you capture 3, you get the lowest man on the totem pole, and then after you capture next to all of them, I don't think you have to capture all of them and every one, you get the highest ranking official of that, and they're all of this corporation named Terra Nova. So I will refrain from any spoilers in case you do want to play. Not that there's much to spoil. You're a good guy, see bad guys, shoot, end of game. That's it. As far as that goes, that's really just how the story is laid out. So replayability, you're not coming back for story. There are no choices to be made, which wouldn't be expected in a Crackdown game in my opinion. Why I say you're going to be playing it twice is because if you did not start on Legendary, there is one achievement where you have to play all the way through on a Legendary game. Other than that, that is the only incentive to play twice. You can restart a world and use your same overpowered agent on any difficulty that you like. As far as that goes, it is the same story. Everything is just a cakewalk. I mean, you thought you were OP the first time around. Wait until you do it with at least a level 5, maybe maxed to a level 6 in all categories agent. It just becomes a cakewalk. There is nothing to offer at that point. Do have to say as well that the achievements are just not worth it. If you're an achievement hunter, this is going to be one that nothing really feels fulfilling, both in the sense of getting the achievements as well as playing the game. You're not going to find a whole lot of fulfillment from this game. Like I said, it is a time waster. You're looking at the in-game content, or the end-game content, excuse me, not in-game. And what we're looking at right now is the user interface. One of the most terrible user interfaces I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with, mainly because it's top down, but you can switch views, and everything is dependent on what you can and cannot click on from the distance of which you're zooming. So while you may be looking for something rather important and you can see it, you run into a problem where you can't click it. Or towards the middle of the map, where there's actually this large metropolitan area, the buildings come up kind of like a 3D hologram style, and it's really just a jumbled mess and you can't pick anything out. As far as that goes, when we're on the topic of, the game itself, the gameplay, there are some gravity-based weapons that make missions borderline ineffective. So when your mission structure is shut down X amount of these things to unlock the boss, the mission needs to be as important as the boss, considering that there's not a whole lot of both. There are, I would say quite a few good number of things to do in between, but not most of them are combat based. Your meat of the game is going to be the actual missions and then the bosses. So the missions, I have to say, are somewhat disappointing, because once you unlock the singularity grenade, or the oblivion rifle, which is basically a larger singularity grenade, you can go do missions and just completely obliterate the masses. Basically, it's every speedrunner's greatest dream, so I do have to say that as well. There are like these vehicle impound missions where you have to go blow up the enemy's vehicles. All you have to do is, you're supposed to deactivate force fields to get to their vehicle supplies. All you have to do is fire the gravity weapon at them. It will pull them towards the force field, and you don't even have to deactivate them. They will just blow up on contact. Same thing with a lot of these refinery missions. You go and shoot the machines with one large oblivion thing, and you can just run off to the next one, and it will literally blow up in the background and complete the mission for you. Bosses are pretty lackluster. None of them have any fun gimmicks. It's literally just shoot or be shot, which, I mean, once again, can't expect too much out of the Crackdown series when it comes to bosses. I feel like there's nothing really inventive about this game. I could keep going about this. Single player, I've pretty much talked about everything that I could on single player. They do include a 5v5 mode known as Wrecking Zone. I played a couple matches of it. Not spectacular. Don't think it's really worth diving into. So all in all, if you pay $10 for this on Games Pass, you're going to have a pretty fun time. I feel like you can find something to justify just paying $10 for this game on Games Pass. If you pay $60, I'm sorry, it's probably not worth $60. I would not recommend it. But then again, that is objective. You as the consumer have to determine what is worth X amount of dollars. I do not feel that this would be worth $60+ for me. All in all, in the end, I'm going to give Crackdown 3 a 5 out of 10. Guys, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you want to see more of this, please let me know. Much love, and I will see you next time.